We really have four candidates that need no introduction, but from my left to right, we have Mayor Ivy Taylor, who's right in her own neighborhood here, so please give Mayor Taylor a warm welcome. We have former State Representative Mike Villarreal next to Washington County Commissioner Tommy Atkinson. For the first time I can say former State Senator Leticia Vanderbilt. Thank you all candidates for coming out. Iris, let me give you this other microphone. This is going to be your microphone, and relatively early in the program, maybe halfway through, we're going to turn it over to you. So I hope you don't get all bashful on us, and that you come with some good questions for the candidates. And I'll do my best to make sure each of the candidates gets their fair share of time to answer questions from the audience. So everybody have some water? That's yours. Well, if you want a beer, we'll have one sent out. Pints for the candidates, please. Moderation for the moderator. I'll stick with my water, but afterwards I'll celebrate with a beer. I don't know whether or not we in the media can do anything about the fact that local elections draw 6%, 7%, 8% of registered voters, but we would like to move that needle if we could, and we would like to do our small part at the Rivard report. And there is so much at stake May 9th on the elections. We're electing a mayor. Doesn't matter which council district you're in, there is a competitive race in all 10 districts, multiple candidates in most cases. Several incredibly important charter amendments will be on the ballot. Some things that have not been changed since the charter was written in 1951. We'll talk about some of those as we go along. And for many of you, you'll be electing a school board trustee in your school board district. So there's an awful lot to go on. And we're hoping very much to engage you. We have bribed you with a little beer, we admit, but we hope you're registered to vote. And if you're not registered, we hope you will get registered. And we hope evenings like this will motivate you to say it really does matter that I get involved, and I will vote either early from sometime between April 27th and May 5th, or on May 9th, the actual election day. So I want to start off a little bit differently this time than we normally would, and leave the public policy issues aside for just a moment, and give you the same sort of understanding of the candidates that we in the media have, who spend a lot more time about them. In other words, I'd like you to get to know them personally a little bit, and give each of them 5 minutes to talk about themselves and how they got into public life and why they're running for office now and who they are and maybe what shaped them as people, and just let you see each of them is an interesting individual, each with a long record of public service, and each a very serious candidate to become your next mayor. So with that, I'm going to start. Mayor Ivy Taylor, you drew number one, and I think I'm going to get my iPhone out, and I'll quietly say time if you get to the 5-minute mark. But otherwise, the floor is all yours.
Okay, all right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Well, I'm excited to see everyone here and to welcome you to my neighborhood, because as Bob mentioned, I live within walking distance of this wonderful establishment here. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, yes, I am from the east, but a little bit further east than east side San Antonio. Was born in New York, but got to Texas as fast as I could. So born there, but raised by parents who were from the South, who had to leave their homes to find better opportunities. And they didn't go to college, they were working class, but they provided the opportunity and the stability for me to be able to do well in school and end up getting into a great college. So I ended up going to Yale University, coming home and really floundering because I had no idea what I wanted to do, what I was passionate about, or how I was going to spend my life. All I knew was you go to a good school and you get a good job somehow. It was supposed to add up. So after a few years in jobs that I hated, I took some time to do a little soul searching and discovered a field called urban planning, and decided to go back to school and get a master's degree in city planning at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. While I was enrolled there, I was selected for a summer internship to work with a group of nonprofits focused on affordable housing here in San Antonio. And I came here for the summer for a 10-week internship, and in week 2, I was invited to a church where I sat behind my future husband in church. And so he got me to come back here when I finished that degree program. And so I started my professional career here with that degree in hand in urban planning, where my focus area had been in housing and community development. Started out working for the city, actually. Oh. So I worked for the city of San Antonio for 6 years, working with developers and investors who wanted to focus on making the inner city a better place to be. I left working at the city because I got a little frustrated, frankly. I didn't think that the folks at the city were progressive enough as far as investing in the inner city and making progress and being creative. And I went to work for a nonprofit affordable housing organization called Merced Housing Texas, a faith-based organization that was doing some work over here on the east side. And I was sent to a Dignity Hill Neighborhood Association meeting through that work, and I told my husband, I really like this neighborhood, I think we should buy a house over here. So we ended up doing that. But in any case, I've also served on the city's planning commission, the urban renewal commission, and was thinking that I wanted to do something different that would have more of an impact on people's lives, because I thought that housing wasn't the only issue. It wasn't the main thing that could change things for folks, so it's certainly important. And so some community members approached me and asked me if I would consider running for city council, and I thought it was a crazy idea. But I thought about it and I said, you know, maybe this is my opportunity to make a bigger impact and to help create the kinds of neighborhoods that would make, you know, make San Antonio even stronger. And so I went for it. And so in 2009, I was elected to represent this area on the city council as a District 2 council member. Worked real hard to bring projects like this to the east side. So the main thing that brought me into this work is wanting to work with people who had a different vision of what some of our neighborhoods could be and what their potential is. So as you can see, I'm not a traditional politician. I'm really someone who has a servant's heart, who has gone on probably a non-traditional path to, you know, end up as your mayor. Certainly was not something that I could have anticipated when I came here as a summer intern in 1997. I've enjoyed very much the opportunity to work on your behalf as a first council member and now as your mayor. Have been really successful, I think, in doing both jobs, and I'm asking for your support so I can continue to serve you and other citizens in San Antonio in achieving our collective vision for all that San Antonio can be, so that it continue to be a great place for us to raise our kids. That's the other thing I should mention. Rodney and I have an 11-year-old daughter that we're also raising here. She was born in Texas. She's officially a Texan. And so I just want to do everything that I can to ensure that San Antonio is the place that she wants to come back to after she gets a degree at Yale also.
That was 4 minutes and 54 seconds. May I ask, can we dispense with titles and go with Ivy, Mike, Tommy, and Leticia for the sake of that'll make my job easier, and everyone will get to know you a little bit better. Mike, your turn.
Great. Well, thank you, Bob, for organizing this. And I look out into the crowd and I see a demographic that challenges the norm when it comes to voting in San Antonio. Typically, if you look at voter turnout, a majority of the voters are 65 and older. And I look out into this crowd and I see the future. And I'm so happy that you're engaged and interested in learning where the candidates stand. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised here in San Antonio. My father immigrated to San Antonio from a small town in Mexico when he was 5 years old. My mom was born and raised here on the west side of San Antonio. near Sarah King Elementary, where my grandmother was a cafeteria worker. Probably the most pivotal event in my family's life was my father, after becoming a citizen in high school, enrolling at St. Philip's College, where he learned a trade. He learned how to fix AC and heating systems. This landed him a job at Lackland Air Force Base, where he worked for 30 years. This job was hugely important. The first thing he did after becoming employed at Lackland and after marrying my mom was he sent her to St. Philip's College, where she became a licensed vocational nurse. Because of their vocational education, we entered the working class in San Antonio, the working middle class. For my parents, education was the key to a better life. And so they worked really hard to make sure that their boys, my brother and I, had a great education. They sent us to Catholic schools, St. Luke's and Central Catholic. For them, this was like a twofer. The brothers and nuns took care of both religion and education all at once. And it was also a struggle, though. It was a real heavy lift for them. But they sacrificed. They worked 2 jobs each. My father, not just working at Lackland Air Force Base, but taking service calls after work every day, Monday through Friday and Saturdays. My mom, her second job, running the household and not getting paid for it, but equally hardworking and sacrificing to make sure that my brother and I received a solid education so we could go further than them. I would become, because of their sacrifice, the first in my family to graduate from college. I studied economics and math at Texas A&M University. My first job, feel free to move, there are any eggs. I landed my first job out of college working at the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System in Washington, D.C. I was a junior statistician. I continued my education at Harvard, where I earned a master's in public policy with a focus on public finance. I worked for a decade in investment banking. My clients weren't people, they were cities and other local governments. I helped these local governments manage their debt, structure their debt, take them to market. Very relevant, important skills for our city at this point in time in particular. Today, I teach part-time at Trinity University. I'm finishing a PhD in public policy at UT Austin. My wife and I, Jean Russell, are raising 2 beautiful children, Bella and Marcos. We live in Southtown, just south of here. We've been living in Southtown for 16 years. In our own way, urban pioneers. We love riding bikes along the San Antonio River, reading books, playing soccer, walking to our favorite restaurants with our neighborhood friends. Let me tell you about running for mayor of San Antonio. It takes internal fortitude. Here's where I get mine. The summer of 1989, before I took the long drive to Texas A&M, I was on a service call with my father. To be the last service call I took with him. We're at somebody's home, working on their unit outdoors. He was doing some welding. At some point, he turned off the torch, set it aside, and turned to me and he said, "Well, Mike, you're gonna go off to college, you're gonna earn your degree, and then you're just gonna keep on going." What he meant by that was that I'd be successful in school and I wouldn't come back home because there would be other cities with greater opportunities than San Antonio. It really made me appreciate all of his sacrifice. Today, we can build a city of opportunity so that our kids see this city as the place to launch their careers, their small businesses, and raise their families. And that's why I'm running for mayor of San Antonio.
Okay, thank you, Mike Villarreal. I like the way you're keeping it fair with the applause. Tommy, 5 minutes, please.
5 minutes? That's unfair. Well, if I might stand, I hate city. I don't know how I made it through 16 years of school, but I've survived it.
Can we all hear him?
Huh?
No.
Can you hear me? No.
I'm gonna start
Okay.
it over, Tommy.
Well, I don't know where my mic went, but there it is. I don't know, maybe you want to check it out. Oh my, that's a little bit too much. There, maybe that's better. Still gonna hum.
Sorry.
It's okay. Maybe it's okay now.
Speak up, Tommy, and see if they can hear you back.
Speak up. Y'all hear me? Okay, great.
On your mark, get set.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Tommy Atkinson, and glad to see this, Bob. Thank you very much for this forum, and glad to see the worthy competition for this mayor's race. Aren't you glad that you have somebody that'll make a fight out of this thing in the best sense of the word, that they actually fight for the best ideas to be implemented at your city hall. I was born in the Santa Rosa Hospital and raised here in San Antonio, went to St. Margaret Mary's Elementary, went to St. Rivard High School, where my mother also graduated in '41. And I am the grandson of a 1903 MIT grad on my mother's side, and a third grade educated sharecropper from the Dust Bowl of Oklahoma on my dad's side. You know, I've really seen as a biblical quote, it says, I am debtor to both the Greeks and the barbarians. Now, I won't call my exes group the barbarians, but they were probably Vikings. They were just hard-working, undercompensated, underappreciated people. And my mother's side of the family had, ancestors all the way up to President of the American Medical Society in the 1870s, and on and on. I got a doctor on both sides of the Civil War from her side of the family. They were really well educated and very fortunate. So I got this diverse thing going on. Now, when I got out of St. Gerard High School, just a few ways down the street here, I looked at a world that I thought was most unfair. I looked at a world that did not care for the older parts of the community. I looked at a world that was indifferent, that never could imagine that this place could actually be cool to be in. And I want you to agree with me, this is one heck of a nice asset for our community. I'm so proud of Eugene Seymour for having the guts to tough it out and try to find a way to make this thing work. But it is kind of, the Dignity Hill area is kind of uptick, nice. Actually, I understand that Mayor Henry Elmendorf, came from Dignity Hill in 1886, probably the last person to represent, to be in the mayor's office from this community, since before yourself, Ivy. But I have watched this community just drift. But many communities, the ones that really concern me, are the ones who don't have what you would call historically worthy preservation potential. They're just middle America, and they're drifting out there. And I don't think the city does what it should do to make sure these neighborhoods are affirmed. That these neighbors who are struggling and wondering, is our neighborhood going up or is it going down? Or is it just coasting and drifting out there? I see so many that are in need, and I see the city for a long time, since way before I formed my own neighborhood association in Highland Hills that I have served as an officer of for better the part of the 36 years it's been around. I see these middle American neighborhoods running out of leadership. All of you young faces in the crowd, how many of you are members of your neighborhood association? Amen. Hats off to you. It's not the only institution that can make a great difference, but if you'll go into those neighborhood associations, most of them you're going to see are full of aging people who would just love for anybody to take over. Huh? 1 minute. Okay? So you got 1 minute to take it over. You need to really think about how you might factor in, because I think your neighborhood association magnifies your influence in society. I think your neighborhood association can help form you into a better person, a better leader, a person that can take on the challenges of the day, which are very substantial in this world. What have I done? I'll get into a whole lot of that later. I don't want to overextend my time. But I helped form the first small minority women-owned business policy of any significance at Bexar County. I helped form a reentry council, which means going out and rescuing and getting people to stop coming back to our jail, because the county is the jail. We finance the jail. The city doesn't pay a plug nickel for all the inmates they check into our jail. So you'll hear more about that as we go. Thank you.
We have a couple people coming late. We have some seats up front if you don't want to stand. If you want to stand, that's fine, and hang out near the bar. But we do have some seats up front if there's a couple people who want to come up and sit down. While we're letting a couple people sit down, how many here are registered to vote? Be honest. A lot more than that. How many people aren't registered to vote but have decided they're going to register to vote and vote? We got some work to do here.
How many are not registered? Won't hold their hand up.
Okay, Leticia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for being here this evening, and thank you to Eugene and the whole team here for bringing a much needed industry and to this venue and this part of town. I'm excited to be here tonight, not only because I see your faces, but I see the most precious gift that you give, and that's the gift of your time. What Bob has asked is for us to share a little bit about the personal side. And I guess I really must start out by telling you that if you look on my resume and bio, you'll see that I was born in Tacoma, Washington. So sometimes folks think, well, you know, maybe she's not from here. Oh yeah, I'm from here. My family's from San Antonio. 3 generations, 6 generations in Texas. But I was born on an Army base, like a lot of the folks in San Antonio and around. Mom was too pregnant during the Korean War to get back to San Antonio, so I was born at Fort Lewis, Tacoma, Washington. My dad, who did not complete college but went to St. Mary's, always called me his Washington apple. You probably don't want to know what he called my brother because they were in Arkansas at the time. But I'm the oldest of 5, and we returned here to San Antonio. I grew up right off South Sonora Street in Wisatch. And through the last 60 years, our age is public record. You know, people say, well, Leticia never forgets where she came from. That's because I never left. I live a block and a half from where I grew up, right off South Sonora Street. And it's a great neighborhood. It's a wonderful neighborhood. Pete and I have built our life here. We've been married 37 years, and we have 6 children, all kind of in this age group of age 25 to 34. In fact, all during the 80s, you know, I was pregnant or nursing all the time. So the most important question that people would ask me is, hey, you and Pete, don't y'all want to join us? Actually, I was the most desired designated driver ever for a whole 10-year period. But I got to live my dream. I got to be a pharmacist and own my own pharmacy and medical clinic in a very underserved area of town, just west of St. Mary's University in the Edgewood School District. I was involved in my profession as a pharmacist, graduated from Jefferson, but then UT in 1979. And I've been a practicing pharmacist ever since. I grew my business, and we grew our family. And the house now that has had that very chaotic 6 kids, we have the laughter of 6 nearly perfect grandchildren. And we're adding to San Antonio. Our son Henry and his wife are expecting twins in August. So we're really proud of that. But people ask me, why did you get into public service, right? Business owner, I was involved in so many community things, on the airport advisory board, on the county board, Central 21 as a business owner, way back in the 80s. I wish I could tell you that it was because I had this intense desire to be an elected official. It wasn't it at all. You see, in the 1980s, I got mad. I got mad because what I saw was happening in our city. There was a vacancy in 1990, and I was convinced to put my name in, the only woman out of 5 other male candidates. And the reason I was angry is I couldn't understand why in the 1980s we had a policy in this state that every cow would be vaccinated and a full registry kept of those immunizations and vaccinations, but no such policy for children. But if you think about it, we were coming out of an agricultural, industrial, manufacturing economy onto a service sector economy. And in an agricultural economy, your cows had economic value, and children were seen as social service. But even more now, in an information-based economy, those third graders, they're economic generators. And I couldn't understand why we didn't treat them as such. I didn't understand why, when the science was starting to be there about the power of quality early childhood education, 3 and 4-year-olds, those neural pathways are starting to fire, why we wouldn't even have kindergarten in the state of Texas. And I was really miffed that the fact that my small business had over 17 different agencies, commissions from different parts of government, all taking a little piece, including 2 that both charged me $300 to do the same function, to measure and calibrate that scale that I used in the pharmacy. And so I got mad and put my name in. Was the underdog, and I won. It was the most joyous occasion for our family, but difficult, because we had in that period of the 6 kids in that 10 years, all of them were under 10 years of age. For 24 years, I have served this community very proudly and humbly as the state senator, working on things with innovation, things like the new laws here. I want to be mayor because I know that I can bring that collaborative style of leadership and proven results back to this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Those are very compelling stories, and this would probably be a good moment to say that Mayor Ivy Taylor gets paid $50 a week, and as a state representative, Mike Mayoral, and as a state senator, Leticia Vanderpute didn't do much better than that over the course of a year. The salaries were more honoraria than they are living wages. Tommy, the county commissioners and county judge do pay themselves a professional salary, and it's a politically interesting piece of trivia that the public doesn't seem to be up in arms about that the way they have about city council being paid. But as all of you know, that's one of the ballot items that you'll be voting on May 9th, whether or not to start to pay our mayor and city council a professional wage. Not a high wage, the median income of a San Antonio family for the council people, council members, and the median family wage plus 35% for the mayor. Let me ask a question of the audience. How many people feel that they'll vote in favor of that? How many people think that they're inclined to vote against the salaries? Okay. One of the questions I wanted to ask each of the candidates, and Leticia, we'll start with you and go back the other way, is if you were elected mayor, do you see yourself staying in office for more than one term? We now, with term limits being relaxed, a mayor could serve up to 8 years. And will the outcome of the May 9th ballot and whether or not citizens agree to pay the mayor and council, will that influence your thinking should you be elected mayor?
Thanks for that question. I would be honored to serve multiple terms as mayor. I really think it's important for us to have that continuity. There are certain things that you can do with the council, but when they were forced to really very, very, very strict terms, it's very difficult in 4 years to plan those big projects. Things that are important to this community. I would absolutely stay for as long as the people of San Antonio would vote for me for mayor, and I would plan to do so. I'm glad that the issue of council pay is on the ballot. It hadn't been visited since 1951, and $20 a meeting in 1951, when the city was a very different city, was probably very appropriate. But the important thing is that people will have their say-so in this. Whether it goes up or down has no bearing on my ability to serve and my desire to serve.
Thank you, Tommy. Same question.
I think it's long overdue. Y'all hear me all right?
Yeah.
Long overdue to address this question, and I do definitely support it. No questions about it. Every member of the Commissioner's Court, when I left the court, was making $107,000 a year. county judge about 125, county judge is now about 135, I believe, and the other members of the court 113,000 plus benefits, retirement included. And FYI, my two legislators stayed longer than I did in the legislature. I get about $1,000 a month for 4 years, having been there. I can't imagine you getting a penny less than $5,000 a month for the time that you've spent in your respective offices. These are offices that are being compensated not to prevent you from being a crook, because you can be a crook and be rich. You can be a rich crook, but the reality is it's going to put less stress and strain on you. We just had one member of the council just moved out of his parents' house so he could, in dignity, get married to his wife. And I think it's an open invitation to all kinds of stupid things for us to continue deluding ourselves that this part-time insulting pay of $20 a week is going to do. There's three kinds of people serve on your council: the rich, the retired, and the crusaders. About 7 of them are crusaders, and that's great, and I salute them, but I just think that we're kidding ourselves if we think that's the way to handle it. Some of them have spouses that could go to work for people that have a special interest in what the city council does. Or they can be lured into doing silly things because they're on their knees financially. Get your council off of its knees.
Thank you, Tommy. Mike? Okay, clap for these guys.
All off.
Yes.
So, we're living in a time.
Train time doesn't count. We need a quiet zone. don't we?
How about a little quiet? I think it is. I think you're all right.
Is this on?
We're working on it. Flip the switch.
So I think we're living in a unique moment in time where our world is getting smaller through globalization. We're in competition not with Austin or Boston, but cities around the world. We are also experiencing incredible population growth. And so we have a lot of work to get done. We need to continue to diversify our economy. We need to invest in infrastructure so that it keeps up with our growing population. We need to make sure we protect our fiscal health as a city, protect our AAA credit rating, keep taxes low, keep regulations sane. And so to do all of these things, we need a mayor who's committed for the long term. And I'm committed to stay in office as long as the voters want me, for the maximum 8 years. Council pay and mayor pay. I think it is the right thing to do. I think it has merit. But here's my concern. It's the timing. I think right now the most important financial decision in front of city council is getting the contract right between the city and our first responders, our police officers and our firefighters. And that has not happened. It has drug out. I am, of course, always the optimist, but the way the conversation has evolved, it's really devolved. And I'm very concerned about that contract. We need to make sure that public safety continues to be a priority, but we also need a contract that is financially sustainable, that allows us to attract the best talent and keep it here, but also does not have public safety costs growing faster than the revenue coming in to our city coffers. And that hasn't been done yet. And so I'm not very happy about the timing. I'm also concerned that the last time we attempted to change the charter and extend term limits, we had a mayor that championed it, that raised money to make sure that we had the public awareness needed to get it passed. We had a mayor who went around the city, going neighborhood to neighborhood, explaining why it was important to reform term limits. Right now, we are not seeing that kind of leadership to get this accomplished. And I'm concerned that we're not taking advantage of this moment to have an honest and open and transparent conversation with voters about this issue. Thank you.
Can y'all hear me? Okay, well, I've been serving on the city council for 6 years at the current, at the rate of pay that we have, which is pretty minimal. So certainly that wouldn't be a hindrance to me continuing to serve should the voters decide that they don't want to have pay. As far as how long I would serve, I think here recently I've learned not to make projections about what the future holds for me. So what I would say is that there are some important issues that on the table that require strong leadership, and I have really enjoyed the opportunity to bring that leadership for our city thus far, and would be honored to continue doing that until we cross some crucial milestones at least, some projects and plans that are currently underway. As far as the timing for this discussion, I don't have a problem with us discussing it right now. It's something that we've been kicking around back and forth over cocktail conversations, community meetings, chamber meetings. We have been talking about this for years and have been afraid to put it back on the ballot. So I say, let's put it out there and let's have some intelligent discussion about it where it's not political. And that's why, as your mayor, I created a standing charter commission that could bring these issues forward for you without it having to necessarily be tied to a particular person who's running or someone who's championing an issue, but that it just makes sense for us as a city of 1.4 million people, that we need to have the best and the strongest framework possible for us to run efficiently and to have a good, strong city government. And so that commission will continue to meet regardless of what happens on May 9th. They'll continue to meet and discuss what makes the most sense. Now, I do believe that we ought to have paid council members because I just mentioned we're a city of 1.4 million people, and you have 11 people representing your interests. It's a lot of constituents that we have to answer to, a lot of big issues, some of which have been touched on, that we have to deal with. And the ideal situation is for us to have professionals who are full-time working on your behalf in relation to these issues. And so I think that having a salary certainly is a way to do that. And I also think that having a salary is a great way to ensure that we have a diverse council that's representative of the interests of the people. Tommy, I guess, put me in the category of crusader. I wouldn't call myself a crusader, but I will say that it's pretty limited who has the ability to be able to run for those seats, because people have to make a living, people have kids they have to put through college. And so do you want a council that's truly representative of all our diverse needs as a city? Well, I think if we have pay, that certainly creates the opportunity and the platform for more people to be able to serve, to represent you.
Thank you very much, Ivy. Tommy, we'll start with you on a follow-up question. You mentioned a state pension. People may not know you served in the legislature, and you do have that pension. Some of us in the media are more familiar with all of you personally than maybe people in the audience. So I'll ask each of you, starting with you, Tommy, how can you afford to serve as mayor for $50 a week if you are elected?
I think most mayors have either been rich or retired. I don't think there's too many crusaders. I mean, you can just count back and figure out which ones, even Leon, I understand, was pretty fortunate in his law practice, and that afforded him a little relief in his ability to be mayor. But you take the rest of them, Phil Hardberger, and just count them. They're all pretty well set. I don't think you see any out-and-out crusaders. First of all, the price tag for running for mayor is supposed to be $1 million. That's what I was told. I resent the hell out of that. That is not right. That makes a whore out of all of your mayors almost, because they've got to go and kneel in front of all of the hoi polloi, hoping that they'll get the blessing and you can be mayor. But you do our bidding. And if you don't, you're out. So to me, there's a lot to be said for being well off, so that you can, and I will tell you, a lot of my financing so far has come from my retirement plan and my dearly beloved wife, Karen Barbie Atkinson, who's acquiesced, because I am not going to go out and say whatever you want. I'll do whatever you want to do. Now, there's a lot of people who do that in public life. The public doesn't realize it. 46 years of being involved in government, politics, and civic affairs has shown me that that is far too often the standard operating procedure, because you don't have the money yourself to do it. So you've got to beg. And when you beg, you are beholden to some extent, not completely. Thank God.
Okay, so I hear that you have 2 pensions, one from the state, one from the
Yep,
county.
I do.
Okay.
And I've got my little simmering law practice that I have, that I, keep. I'm not about, after all that paper chase and taking the bar and going through all that, I'm not about to say, oh, well, I can do anything. No, I'm going to keep my license. Because this is a fickle business. Y'all know that. It's a fickle business.
Might be a reality.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Is that good? Okay. So on the morning when we all learned that we'd be losing our mayor to become the next secretary of HUD, we started having a conversation in my household, my wife and I, about what would happen to the city. Would we lose the energy that was built under Julian, the priorities, the focus, the civic engagement, what would happen to SA 2020, pre-K for SA, many of the initiatives that were started and launched by many folks in San Antonio. Would those just get set aside because the new mayor was coming along? Before the day ended, I turned to my wife and asked her, should I run for mayor? And if I do, would you support me? I needed to have her endorsement, because this is a campaign and an office that really will take up everything you have. And so, because my wife and I really have a shared focus in public service, she was a reporter for many years at the Express News before Phil Harberger recruited her to be head of communications in his administration. She stayed on under Julian, led a lot of his education policy work, continues to be a policy consultant in the area of education. So both of us really are about trying to move the city forward. Ultimately, it had to be a family decision, and as soon as she gave me the green light, I was off and running. To succeed as mayor, we are going to, number one, my wife will keep working. Number two, I will shift my part-time teaching that's currently at Trinity University to UTSA, because they have a policy school that is near downtown, near City Hall. And finally, we'll live within our means, which is how we have lived our life while I served for 15 years in the state legislature.
Thank you, Mike. You, Taylor?
Okay, well, during the time, the 6 years that I've served on the San Antonio City Council, I've been blessed to have a position as a full-time lecturer over at UTSA in the Public Administration Department at the downtown campus. And so I usually teach 3 classes a semester. And when I became mayor, they gave me a course release. And so I've been teaching 2 classes. And so actually it's a great balance, because it allows me to share with young San Antonians firsthand information about what's happening in their city, and to inspire them and engage them and try to get them involved at an early age in what's going on in the political scene and in their neighborhoods, and figuring out how they can make a difference in their community. So I anticipate that I'm doing that position right now, and I anticipate that will still be available as an option for me. My husband owns a small business, and he's been very supportive of my service to the city in this regard, and was very ecstatic when I made the decision to run for mayor. So that's what we'll keep doing.
Thank you, Ivy. Leticia?
Thanks, Bob. To be a public servant is more than just to put your name on the ballot. And it's more than just attending a meeting or those committee hearings. It's about engaging with the people. For the 24 years that I was in the legislature, I remained in my profession. I didn't have customers. I didn't have clients. I had patients. I still work part-time, a couple of shifts. at Davila Pharmacy in San Antonio's West Side. And as our kids were growing up, it was difficult. Gotta tell you, this legislative pay, it was difficult. We had 4 in college at the same time. I mean, I thought, well, what were we thinking? And Pete said, we weren't thinking. I mean, 4 in college at the same time, but our house is a modest house. I think it's valued now at about $160,000, $100,000 more than when we bought it 30 years ago. I know that I can serve very faithfully and diligently the people of this community. Yes, we're gonna have a legislative retirement pay, but I haven't gotten a check, so I have no idea what that is yet. And I know that the beauty of being a pharmacist is you can work those night shifts at the hospital pharmacy. And for 6 years, I was a hospital pharmacist working the graveyard shift and then working 12 hours Saturdays and Sundays. During my legislative tenure, I was the pharmacist that was on duty Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, all during the holidays. The times and places where usually your state and your city government, your county government kind of shut down. You'd find me in the white coat. But I learned more from my patients, not just about their families and their health care. But all you have to do is spend one day in the pharmacy and you know if that school board member is doing a good job or not. You know whether that bond election is going to go up or down. Because we usually see about 300 folks in just 2 days' time. As mayor, I would still keep my pharmacy license. I'm very proud of that, and it keeps me centered in listening to the real problems of people. But I've got to tell you, I probably would not work more than a shift a week. Now that I've got retirement, and now that all of our children are out of our house and having families of their own, that decision to run was made with our spouses. And although that we think that families serve, and they do, and I've got to give thanks to the spouses, to Jeannie and to your husband and to Karen and to all of those. And those of you who have a partner, we're no different than you are. You've got to have that total support of the person who loves you, who centers on you, and not just putting up with it, not just the encouragement. They've got to be full partners. And I'm blessed. And a guy named Pete Van de Putte, who by the way is of Belgian descent, so he loves the beer, is absolutely 100% in this. We made that decision, and we've got a comfortable lifestyle, not a grand life, but we've never had a grand life. We've never been wealthy, but we've been very rich in our family and in our neighborhood and in the opportunities to serve this community. I want to continue to serve the city that I love so very much.
Thank you, Leticia. We're at the halfway point here, and so we're going to start with Mike Villarreal. I think all of us appreciate all of you sharing your personal story with us, and it should be obvious even to the newest newcomer that we have 4 very different individuals up here, all very passionate in their own way, but each unique. And I'd like to ask now each of the candidates to take another 5 minutes. After this round, we're going to go to the audience, and they can ask the rest of the questions tonight. But I'd like you to get away from your personal story a little bit and talk about what your vision would be if you were elected mayor for the next 2 to 8 years. Where you see the city today and where you'd like to take it. And Mike, we'll start with you, and I'll give each of you 5 minutes again and call time when we get there.
Since May of last year, I've been pursuing one office with one goal, and that is to make San Antonio a city of opportunity for our children. I want San Antonio to be a city where if our kids earn an education, acquire 21st century skills, they see our city as the place to launch their careers, to start their small businesses. I want us to be a city that shifts from being a city of brain drain to a city where our kids realize their fullest potential here, where 20 and 30-year-olds who earn an education from San Antonio and from other cities come to our city to make their mark. I want us to go from being a city that is insecure about its place in the 21st century to being confident and thriving in the 21st century. I want us to grow as one city, connected not two cities separate and apart, one north of 410 and one south of 410. And that means investing in infrastructure that ties us together better. You know, the project that makes my heart sing is what's happening along the river and along our creekways. We need to complete the Howard Peak linear park system that's built along our creekways that currently goes from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, either already built or paid for. It needs to touch the San Antonio River. We need to build out the center of our town. We need to be serious about building complete streets so that our business corridors are not just places for cars, but also bicyclists. I want San Antonio to be one of the top 10 safest places to bike. Ultimately, our measure of success is going to be whether we are attracting 20 and 30-year-olds to our town to be the dynamic substance of our economy that drives the sectors that are emerging today: cybersecurity, information technology, automotive manufacturing, aerospace manufacturing, and of course, healthcare and biosciences. But we have a lot of work to do to get there. If we're going to achieve any of this, we're going to need a mayor who is forward-looking, who embraces technology and innovation and public policy, who is going to govern in a completely non-partisan way. We're going to need a mayor that brings us together around a shared, united vision for a stronger San Antonio. I want to be that mayor for you so that we can work together to accomplish these things.
Thank you, Mike. Ivy Taylor.
Okay, great. Well, we have such a wonderful city here with so many assets. And if you allow me to continue serving as your mayor, I want to work really hard for us to build on those assets. And to do that through a couple of ways. At the top of the list, we have to stay economically competitive. It's very important for us to continue to have a strong economy. We know that we do have many bright spots. There are a lot of growing industries here, but we also know that we have some areas where we need to improve and invest. Certainly, one of the top areas where we need to invest is related to our people. Workforce development, that's been one of the key issues that I've been working on during my time as mayor. I've been working with Judge Wolf over at Bexar County on this issue as we have mutual interests. It's very important to make sure that we have folks here who have the skills and the competencies to be able to support growing businesses like this one right here. So that is very, very important. Business retention and expansion is important, supporting our small businesses. As we know, they're the backbone of our economy. As the District 2 council member and as mayor, I supported this project so that we could be sitting right here today. And I'm so thrilled that we are sitting here today in this wonderful facility. So we need to support folks like Eugene Seymour who have that vision. We need to make sure that there are San Antonians out there that are prepared for the types of jobs that those small business owners are creating. Certainly it's important to ensure that we have a city that's attractive to those big businesses, but there's no big business Superman that's gonna come in and save San Antonio. We have all the tools to improve our community right here. And as I mentioned, small businesses are the backbone of our community. Second, we have to make sure we continue to have smart government. The smart government's got to be fiscally responsible. We've got to maintain that AAA bond rating that we have that keeps our interest rates low. So when we put out a bond, we can borrow money and invest the maximum amount possible in our infrastructure projects. So investing in infrastructure is another key strategy that we need to employ that I will focus on as your mayor. There are several other things we need to do that we can do to improve our governance structure. One that I've already brought to the table is the Charter Commission, to make sure that we have a framework that's in place to ensure that we're efficient and effective in the governance. And there are several ideas that have been generated, and I'm hopeful that the voters will support some of those and that we'll continue to generate those ideas and implement them. And then third, it's very important that we act as one San Antonio, that we see ourselves as one San Antonio, and not just a collection of mini cities. You know, we're very big as far as our land mass, but we still have to be connected and tied to each other through our collective vision for prosperity, for strong, safe, stable, mixed income neighborhoods throughout our city. Through ensuring that we're not just focusing on special interests and partisan agendas. And as your mayor, I've already demonstrated that through getting us through several important issues like the Vista Ridge water supply project, which will ensure that we have additional water for our community, through bringing the police back to the table, because when I became mayor, there was no negotiating happening. There was just a lot of arguing. And so since I've been mayor, we have had fruitful discussions, and we will have additional discussions next week. And actually the city has made a strong proposal. That's what I bring to the table. I'm someone who's focused on working with everyone. I don't have a particular special interest that I'm promoting. My special interest is San Antonio and making sure that we succeed, and that any child that's in any neighborhood in San Antonio will feel that they have the opportunity to do whatever they can, to aspire to be whatever they can, that their trajectory won't be dictated by whatever their zip code is within San Antonio. And I know that we have the potential to all work together to fulfill that, to make that a reality.
Thank you, Ivy. Leticia.
Thank you. You know, we're a very old city, almost 300 years old. And we always honor the hard work and the sacrifice of those who came before us, our parents, our grandparents, and now the people that we work with, the people in our families. San Antonio has never lacked vision. They've never lacked that dreams and those hopes. We're big dreamers. What we find ourselves now is lacking the courage and the leadership to do the implementation. We're going to be the 5th largest city in the country, AAA bonded, and yet we don't act like it. How can we attract and keep that growing workforce that we need when we say no to things like rideshare and Uber Lyft? When we can't find middle ground to ensure public safety and give people choices? How can we attract and be and implement what that vision is when we're on the B team list for Google Fiber? How can we be that city that we all know that we've got pieces of if Tesla lithium batteries said no to us because of the lack of our workforce? You see, we dream big, and we got big plans. I know the one thing that I do well is bring people together. Not just to dream big and to have a plan, but to implement it. And for 24 years, I really have been doing that. Do you remember a time when landlines only had voice and cable only had entertainment and satellites delivered data? It was the bill that I shepherded and worked on. All my life, I just wanted a Dick Tracy watch, you know, and I think I've been looking at Apple Watches, that's what we've got. But it's changing the framework so that you implement. This part here, changing the alcohol beverage code so that we could put $110 million of capital investment, both in brew pubs and in manufacturers and brew industry. I have always worked on that. What you need is not just somebody with vision. We've all got vision and hope. What you need is somebody who can do it, who has proven results. And I'm really passionate about this city. This is where my kids are. This is where my grandkids are. It's about our neighborhoods and supporting that creative class, whether they're in the arts or in digital framework or in medical research. We've got to have a city that welcomes innovation and not says no to the new things that give us those opportunities to turn our challenges into the plus. I'm really good at that. Maybe it's because I've handled, a lot of kids fighting, and maybe it's because, okay, I'm not describing the legislature, but although it could be, described as that, it is because I know how to bring people together and see that common goal to get it done. Vision is great, we've got it. We can be that great American city one piece at a time, and it's gotta be public safety, it's gotta be infrastructure, it's gotta be the arts, and it's gotta be parks, and it's gotta be workforce and jobs. We can bring it all together. I wanna be your mayor because I know I can do that.
Thank you very much. There's a few people out there that I hope are taking Uber and Lyft home tonight. Tommy.
Okay. About a week and a half ago, I assume all four of us went and visited with Graham Weston out there at Frac Space to listen to him and some of his top brain trusters talk about the missing ingredient in San Antonio, which is, I think, as I took it, neighborhoods, and what's really going on and what will attract young people to want to be here instead of living in Austin and working here. Okay, and I don't want to be Austin. I love Austin. I'm a UT Longhorn, but the fact of the matter is, I don't want to be Austin. I don't want to be anywhere else but here. We're a very unique city. We have great assets. We have great things. We haven't sold ourselves very well, but that's okay. We're doing good, but we can do much better. But the fact of the matter is, what Graham Weston, I think, was talking about was the neighborhoods. How are they doing? How are we doing, person to person? An athlete by the name of James Hill graduated from Highlands High School about 15, 20 plus years ago. And he was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to play football with Texas A&I. He went from Texas A&I to the Detroit Lions, and from the Detroit Lions to the LA Rams. And he came back down here to San Antonio to receive his induction into the San Antonio Sports Hall of Fame. And what does he do when he gets to the mic? He says, you know, it's really great to come back to a town where people look you in the eye. Now I'll tell you, if we ever lose that, shame on us. We have got to be us. And we are unique and we're valuable, but we've got to attend to the things where people don't have lobbyists to advance their cause. The neighborhood associations, the neighborhood agenda, streets, drainage, code compliance, animal care services. I don't care what it's about no kill. I don't care about no kill. Yeah, it's a great goal and I'm for it and all that. But when I see the number of dogs running around in my neighborhood, and my neighborhood is not as challenged as others are, I know it's even worse there. I know that our animal care services needs lots of help. I don't like an unwalkable neighborhood. I want a walkable neighborhood. I don't want a dog chasing me and biting on me or anybody else. Girl down the street was killed by a pit bull because she tried to unleash him from a fence and he grabbed her by the throat and killed her. That wasn't just recently, but that's the sort of thing that some people worry about. So I think what we have to worry about here in this town is safe, livable, and sustainable neighborhoods. Most of y'all saw that my mother was subject to a home invasion about a week ago. The guy comes in firing 4 shots after he kicks the dead-bolted door down on the side of the house. And she's getting up to see what's going on, and he's got a gun to her forehead and says, "Where's your purse?" She gave it to him, he left. And I've heard other people in other nice neighborhoods who are having this happen, but they don't want to talk about it because they don't want their neighborhood impugned. We cannot tolerate that kind of thing in our neighborhood. I understand our police department is 175 people down from where it really needs to be because they've been in a state of drift. These are the things that I think Graham Weston's concerned about. How are our neighborhoods doing? I'll fix them. I've been down the road with this project and these issues, and I invite you to be a big part of it because it needs everybody front and center. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy, and we're all very seriously happy that your 90-year-old mother, 91-year-old mother is okay. That was a terrible incident indeed. Iris Dimmick, my colleague, and maybe Jaime Solis, I'm not sure where Jaime is, but we have microphones, I think, and we'd like the audience to share with the candidates what's on their mind. And ideally, you will introduce yourself, keep the speechifying to a minimum, and if you'd like to direct your conversation or your question to a specific candidate, please say so. And Iris, well, you may have some questions off Twitter. I don't know whether or not you've been watching.
I do, but I think we should start with folks that are here.
You're in charge. We got a hand up right here, Iris.
I'm going to take care of you.
Hi, thank you all very much for coming tonight. It's a pleasure to be here, drinking beer and talking politics, so thank you for that. One of the main questions I have is that I'm not really interested in the politics of it, I'm interested in the policy of it. And local government is a lot more policy-based than politics-based. And so I have two very specific questions for all the candidates, I guess. So I don't know how you want to handle that, Robert, but I'll just throw it out there. I am not a native San Antonian. So I know a lot of the talk is how people are native to San Antonio and how that's super important. I'm not. Thankfully, my wife is, and she brought me here. But the two questions I have is, what are one specific policy goal that you have to attract more young and restless millennials to San Antonio, to make it the vibrant city that it needs to be to attract them? And two, how will you help the struggling communities to keep them here and to keep their children here and to make sure that those communities aren't forgotten in a push to look outward instead of inward? Thank you.
Well, thank you for that question. I think we're at Ivy Taylor in the rotation to start.
Okay, sure. Well, thank you so much for that question and that comment. Well, I would say at the top of the list would be, as far as attracting people here, I think it's going to be neighborhoods. You know, that the neighborhoods are places that people want to be, that San Antonio has a unique and distinct quality of life that people want to experience. Now, I can tell you what exactly that is for me, but what I've learned and what I think is so fabulous about San Antonio is that it's not necessarily the same for everyone. And that's what's great, is that we have a diversity of types of neighborhoods. You can be kind of like in the country, in the city, or you can have that walkable, you know, Pearl experience where you live above, you know, a great restaurant where you want to hang out. So I think ensuring that we have those options, and that especially in inner city where there's potential in places like Dignity, that we have policies that are facilitate investment in these areas. For example, you know, we have a tax freeze in the historic districts. I think we need to figure out how we can expand that or replicate that type of thing to get more people to invest in some of the housing in some of these neighborhoods, and ensuring that they have great infrastructure and that they have the proper police patrols to reduce crime. I think people are attracted to neighborhoods and housing. As far as keeping them, I've heard for a long time about people who grew up here, went away to college, and didn't come back. And so I think as far as keeping them, it's going to be about jobs, right? It's going to be about economic development, making sure that we have a diversity of businesses and companies that provide the types of jobs where people feel that there's opportunity for them here. And so it's hard to pinpoint just one thing related to those jobs, but I would say that the top of the list is listening to the industry folks about what it is that they need. Because a lot of times, you know, the eggheads down at City Hall or folks over at a college come up with an idea that they think makes sense for business. But we need to sit down with people who are working in that industry and find out what it is that they need in order for them to be able to expand and grow. And then once we have more of those jobs available, I think that will attract more of those folks to come back or stay.
Thank you. Leticia, a policy goal, you were elected.
I believe your question was specifically related to policy to attract more guys and gals like you, right?
And the second part as well.
And then the policy part about communities who, let's face it, are in poverty. So the first question about what is it that attracts folks here? Is it the job, or is it the ambiance? Is it what the vibe is of the city? You may have come here because you fell in love. And let me tell you, that happens quite a bit. San Antonio has a tagline of Military City USA. It was a time when we had 5 military bases. We still have a huge military presence with about $27, $24 billion, somewhere in there, of economic input to the city. But do you really think that a lot of folks your age are impressed with the tagline, come to San Antonio, Military City USA? Well, yes, that's where we really got embedded that cybersecurity. But what I know from millennials and what I know from the folks that I would say their 20s, 30s, and 40s, because as I look, I think 40 is pretty young as well, those 40s. They want a community that values them. What I know about my own children and about this is that you live your life not of success in defined terms that maybe my generation did. You want to live a life of significance. And that means you want to feel valued in the workspace and you want to feel valued in the community. And you want to have the things like walkable communities and bikes and safe bicycle paths. You want to have that linear creeks. So it's part of the infrastructure that is so very important. It's about supporting that creative class. One policy directive that is absolutely imperative is that we continue to aggressively make sure that our downtown is vibrant. And then as it spreads to other communities, because it used to be that South Lavaca and Pearl and Beacon Hill and Alta Vista, they were neighborhoods that were in trouble. They were having a lot of issues. We need to find that balance to make sure that the people that are there can still afford, whether it's the rehabilitation programs and grants. So the first thing I would do is make sure that that infrastructure included the type of ambience, right? The type of things that are of value to people who make their decisions based not on just the dollar sign. And that's where I think that we've got to have a real change about San Antonio. The second thing that you asked is the policy on the aging communities. Look, I live on South Zamora Street, and the closest gated community to me is the jail. We need to make sure, it's true, what we need to make sure is that as those communities are facing it, that there's the infrastructure and support. That means, yes, it's about the policy, but it is about the politics. Because I will leverage every relationship, every friendship, every contact that I've ever had. Number one, to bring back as much federal and state dollars here to help with that housing revitalization, to help with those linear parks and streets. Because I always thought, right, if I got the policy right, that I would be okay. No, you gotta use the politics because you gotta use the relationships. And that's what I would do, is to make sure to leverage all of that so that as taxpayers, you're getting value from the hard taxes that you pay to the federal government, the state government, and your local governments.
Thank you, Leticia. Tommy?
Well, I'm not a proponent of biggest is the best or bigger is better. I think that's fine if you get big, but the question is, do you still have quality? I think in terms of the more technical jobs that we have, the University of Texas Health Science Center, I think, reflects the greatness that we have here locally. Dr. Julio Palmas, who invented the stent, has been practicing in your county hospital called the University Health System for many years. And there are many others that are doing awesome things. They're one of the dentists, a lady there, is growing teeth. And boy, could we appreciate that if you've ever had a tooth pulled. You'd like to have your original tooth back if you could. But so that if you lose more, you maybe can get original teeth there. But the fact of the matter is, we've got technical expertise. But I think it gets back to what I thought Graham Weston was talking about. How are you going to keep people here? They've got to have nice neighborhoods. I had a neighbor that if you drove in front of my house and hung out there for just 30 seconds, she'd be out to say, "Are you looking for Tommy?" I like that. I like somebody that's got my back. In my neighborhood, we didn't even have a door locked throughout the 50s. And we didn't get deadbolts till 1970 or so. And now my mother just got her first security system because we don't feel safe. So if you think the neighborhood aspect is just a bunch of, hogwash, or it's really not that big a deal, that's what I think Graham was talking about. And I think that's what the millennials will demand, along with a great economic opportunity, which I know that we provide that.
Thank you, Tommy. Mike?
I think about this in two parts. There's answering how we attract and keep our educated 20 and 30-year-olds, needs to include both economic opportunity, diversifying our economy, and also making sure we have a rich quality of life here. On the economic front, probably the greatest challenge we have in strengthening the 5 emerging sectors of our economy, which include cybersecurity, information technology, the others I mentioned in manufacturing and healthcare, is that they are scrounging for skilled workers. They're limited in their growth because we do not have a talent pipeline that runs from high school into those sectors. We have Rackspace, for example, sending a bus to Austin to bring programmers to San Antonio and then taking them back at the end of the day, all because we haven't been able to produce enough young people or even adults who want to land a better job. We haven't been able to connect them with real skills that are in demand today. And so as mayor, I will be a partner with our business leaders in these sectors and our education leaders, making sure that we take full advantage of House Bill 5, a piece of legislation that I co-authored that is attempting to remake high schools. We cut back the number of standardized exams from 15 to 5. We allow students to have more electives so that they can choose quality technical career education. Yeah, I want us to, together, look at high school not in a way that says there's some kids who are going to college and some that are not, but rather recognize everybody is going to have a career. And we need to give our young people an experience in high school that allows them to get the basics, but also acquire skills that are in demand so that when they graduate from high school, they can choose to go work for Rackspace or continue their education in information technology at UTSA or anywhere in the country. So building out that talent pipeline will be my top priority in strengthening our economy. On the quality of life side, we know that educated 20 and 30-year-olds, and these are kids that, young people that are not just acquiring college degrees, but are acquiring just technical skills, programming skills, or other skills in other sectors. They are interested in living in urban centers. And so I will continue to advance the policy of strengthening our core, not at the expense of the rest of the city, but we have to recognize that every great city has a great downtown. And so we need to continue to strengthen the urban core. We need to bring back Uber and Lyft and other rideshare technologies that are emerging. Feel free to shout out anytime. When I am mayor, I will make sure that City Hall does not pass any regulations that really represent wet blankets on technology that is still figuring itself out. You know, it's the way we used to think about email when AOL came out decades ago. And we don't think about email and browsers the same way today. You know, this technology is still emerging and is an important part of making life more livable here in San Antonio. And I'll make sure that we bring that back and continue the effort to create more cultural and other life quality experiences in San Antonio.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have another question, Iris?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks. Hi, I'm Winslow Swart, and this question is kind of building on the theme that a lot of you guys have some very good thoughts on. It has to do with Phil and Julian have helped put the city on a trajectory, which now we often refer to as a city on the rise. Maybe we've had a couple setbacks or missed opportunities as of late, and some of those have been discussed as well. But I'd like to hear from the candidates, from Letitia and Mike and everyone, what specifically do you think you can do and to help lead this city to not only maintain but even accelerate that trajectory so that we can enjoy the benefits, all of us, not our children, our neighborhoods, our knowledge economy, our creative class. What specifically do you think we can do to accelerate that trajectory.
Okay,
Project.
Winslow, let Iris get a few more questions asked, and then we'll let the candidates take them. Lady right here, Iris, microphone.
Don't know necessarily have a question, but my name is Jada Gonzalez, and I have, first of all, thank you all of you. I've worked with you in some capacity, or served on the board in some capacity. I started a business 25 years ago in District 5. I'm an internet web development pioneer. And so I started the business out of the house with $500. And there's a couple of things that John mentioned, and then I moved it to the west side, where UTSA downtown is, Buena Vista in Colorado, and then I moved it to the east side, and I was there for 16 years. And now I moved it and bought a building in District 1, right across from SAT. So I'm definitely intercity. I think one of the things, and y'all mentioned things like One San Antonio, we lack implementation, change framework, quality of life. I think those are all really good, valid observations, but I will tell you, as someone being bilingual by culture, never really having the Grand Western experience, but really, again, growing a business with $500, I don't think necessarily that we always lack implementation or that we don't have the right framework. I think a lot of it is we lack the in-between. I will tell you, as someone with politics and policies, if you're not big enough, you're not going to get the training dollars like Toyota and Backspace. If you're not, big enough, you're not going to get the loans at 1% interest rate like a hotel does. I'm not sure if you know that. There's a lot of things I'm very familiar with, and I think we lack the in-between. How do you get people that are self-sufficient, who put their own money, who have no hesitation, living on the south side, building their own businesses? How do you bridge that gap? Because I really think what we lack is bridging the gap and having the right incentives throughout that process, and not necessarily reinventing the wheel. So it's just something for you to think about. What are those incentives that you can help people as they're trying to be self-sufficient? Because not everybody's rack space, and I have a lot of respect for Graham. The average webhead salary is $75,000 a year. It's not like we're not paying a business under $10 million, but there is no incentives for small business to get matching funds. There is no incentives for us to get loans at 1%. There is no facade money. So those are the things you really got to think about also.
Thank you, very good. A couple more questions, and then we'll let the candidates have the floor again. And we're getting close to timeout, so let's go to the back of the room, Jaime, and get a couple questions asked. The shorter you are, the more time we can give the candidates.
So my question is specifically for Leticia. I came in here with an open mind, and I'm really, really interested in what you had to say. But I want to drill down a little bit. So you talked about getting the council, getting the city to work more collaboratively. So tactically, I'd love to know how you would plan on accomplishing that. The other part of it is, my business is headquartered in downtown. I make my home at the Pearl, so I have a vested interest here. Winslow mentioned something about the city on the rise, and that's kind of been the mantra. And in 30 seconds or less, I'd love for you to answer the first question about how we can bring collaboration to the city. On the other side of it, in about 10 seconds or less, elevator pitch me. Tell me in 10 seconds or less how you would sell me on San Antonio. And I think those are the two things I want to know from you.
Okay, one more question, and we'll let Leticia start once we catch up with everybody. Jaime? And by the way, we can mingle a little bit with the candidates afterwards. Don't let them out the door right away. I'd like all of you to meet them and chat with them. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Celeste Rodriguez, and the city already offers a number of economic incentives to developers who develop in certain areas and do certain things, and also to businesses who bring certain jobs through its tax urban financing, Chapter 380, various types. Do you agree with the current policy in terms of how it's administered, and would you make any changes, or is there any other kinds of incentives that you think need to be offered?
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with Leticia, who has a question directed to her, and a lot's been thrown out there, and I'll let each candidate take about 2 minutes if you can, and go forward.
Your question is, how do you get council members to collaborate together? Well, our council members are very, very new. There are only about 2 of them that have been there 6 years. But I know that they all have great skill sets. But as you can tell from, if you read the paper or you turn on the news, they're not really working together. They don't see that common goal. They all have great passions. There used to be a time when city council, when the council members and a strong mayor set the policy, and then they let the city manager do the implementing. First of all, you've got to work as a team and trust each other. Bringing back the processes so that they trust and respect one another. But your question about collaboration is not just about council. It's got to be that our council members feel free to sit down with our superintendents, that we sit down with the juvenile judges, that we sit down with the leaders who are on the workforce board and with our employers, that we sit down with people who have to make decisions, not on a corporate board, but on other governmental entities and other commissions and task force. So it's, first of all, getting us to work cohesively together, and then the collaboration occurs. Because we're all creatures of relationships. You feel more comfortable sharing and being honest and working together with people you trust. And right now, you can see that that collaboration is not there. The second thing that you asked is what I would do for the elevator pitch. If I saw you in an elevator and I said, where are you? Where are you from? And you would say whatever. And I would say, come to San Antonio. It's got a rich history. We are bilingual. We're bicultural. We're the hardest working people, really, that I've ever met. We dream big and we honor those who have gone before us. But we've got to face to the future. And we're going to be that great American city. You come to San Antonio, you look like you are a giver and you want to add to this community. Come to San Antonio and help us build this one piece at a time. It's going to be about that next generation. You can build a business, you can find your career, you can grow a family, and hopefully one day retire right here and continue to give back.
Thank you, Leticia. Tommy, any other questions from the floor that you want to address?
Well, there were several there.
This is sort of the last word for everyone.
Okay. Oh, well, I would just tell you that I think many of life's lessons have been learned out on the athletic playing field or in the field of competition in life. And anybody knows that's played any kind of sports that there are certain special talents that certain people have to pull the group together. Yes, everybody wants to go out for a pass. No, not everybody can go out for a pass. So you've got to find some way to pull them together, even when they're thinking, well, I'm not going to block if I can't go out for a pass. You know that mentality, if you don't do it my way, well, I'll take my ball home. You've got to have a collaborative spirit, and you've got to be able to pull people together, even when they don't want to do their share because they don't feel like they're being recognized. So you have to apply, I think, that leadership, that salesmanship, that self-sacrificing dimension of your person that tells them, hey, look, you're going to have your opportunity, but right now, let's just win the game. And so I think that's a lot of it. As far as an elevator pitch, man, look at the beauty of this city. Look at the wonderful people. Look at the people that will look you in the eye. They're here. And that's something that San Antonio has that many cities, I suppose, from what the gentleman said, doesn't exist in a lot of big cities. And that's why I don't care whether we get really big or what. I mean, we're pretty big right now. But as far as growing to the ends of the earth and look at the traffic jams in this community. Our infrastructure is not staying up with our growth. It's ridiculous. The state has starved us. The local units don't want to step up to the plate. The county had to give the state 5 different revenue measures because they wouldn't do their own job and fix the highways that they were charged to fix and that we've paid for with cash on the barrelhead when I was a state representative. That has become the order of the day. But you're going to need leadership to do that because some people think you can get something for nothing. And you know, when somebody wants to give you something for nothing, run from them.
Thank you, Tommy. Mike, closing thoughts, answers to any of the questions on the floor?
Yeah. How do we continue to maintain and grow on the energy that was started by Phil and Leon? I think we need to continue to focus on strengthening our workforce. In my opinion, economic development is workforce development. It's access to quality educational opportunities. We need to get more strategic about how we approach growing jobs. It shouldn't just be with a focus on attracting businesses from elsewhere. We should have a focus of making sure the companies that are currently here, like Janie's, have what it takes to grow. We need to be partners, anticipating what their needs are to make sure that the city is working in their best interests. We also need to have a focus on entrepreneurship. And to me, that means keeping regulations sane, keeping taxes low, and making sure that we're delivering on the basics And also creating opportunities for access to capital. As a chairman of financial services, I advocated for changes in the rules that allow for crowdfunding. I think that's just one example in this new period of information technology where we're connecting small investors to small businesses. I think we can do more in this area. In terms of making sure how our economy grows and in a way that includes others, one thing I would change on how we incentivize development in the urban core is I want to make sure if we're going to be giving subsidies to developers, that we also ask them to set units aside for workers. Because we have a whole lot of workers that keep our hotels running, our restaurants running. We have a whole lot of small businesses that are locating downtown. And I want to make sure that downtown grows in a way where folks from all different kind of backgrounds can enjoy the center of our city.
Thank you, Mike, and Ivy Taylor, we're in your neighborhood, so you get the last word.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, I'm gonna stand up because there's some folks that I couldn't quite see in the back, so I don't know if you can see me. Thanks again for being here. Let me tell you this. I can't in 2 or 3 minutes answer all the questions that were thrown out there, give you a grandiose vision. If you're looking for fancy hashtags and slogans and buzzwords, I can't give that to you, okay? If you're looking for someone that has the experience and the knowledge and understands how things work down at your city hall, someone who's gonna be responsive, someone who's gonna listen to you, then I'm willing to continue working on your behalf. If you're looking for someone who has demonstrated leadership, who has brought us to the finish line on some very key issues, if you're looking for someone who is going to make the tough calls, whether, you know, I'm gonna get slammed on it or not. If you think that it's not reasonable to ask people who are gonna be picking people up to submit to a background check, there's really nothing I can say, because I think that our priority should be ensuring that our citizens are safe. So I'm offering I want to be able to continue serving as your mayor, because I think that we are on a great trajectory here in San Antonio. We need to continue investing in ourselves, investing in our people through workforce development, and investing in our infrastructure, and working together as a community to achieve that collective vision. It's not about my vision, it's about our vision. And that's what I want to continue doing. I'm asking for your support so that I can continue doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivy. I hope you've enjoyed the evening and found it as interesting as I have up here, and I really appreciate the audience, all of you being out here, and I especially appreciate the candidates all agreeing to come out and meet with all of us. And we'll have the video up on the Rivard report sometime tomorrow. And for those people that weren't able to come, we know a lot of people wanted to come tonight and we sold out. The candidates have graciously agreed, and I know they're going to be together many times between now and when early voting starts, April 27th. But just before Fiesta starts, they've agreed to come back. We're going to go to the Pearl stable at the brewery that can hold 400 or 500 people seated, and we'll have them all again 2 weeks before early voting starts. So thank you again, audience. Thank you, candidates. I hope you'll introduce yourself to the candidates if you'd like to chat with them a minute as they make their way back home tonight. Thank you very much.